When a popular campaigner is murdered at her doorstep, rumors fly. Was it the Diamond Mafia, a powerful politician, or someone closer to home? This is the story of Sahala Masood. Our story today takes us back to August 16 of 2011 to the city of Bhopal, Madhya Pradesh, where a woman dressed in a blue kurta and a red salwar is rushing out of her house towards her Hyundai car, which is parked less than 3 meters away from the entrance of her home. It was already past 11 a.m. and she was running late to join a rally which she has organized for a campaign called India Against Corruption, a nationwide movement which began in 2011 and stretched on till 2012. As she leaves, she simultaneously says goodbye to her father, who is shaving in the bathroom, and answers a call from her assistant. Next, she quickly shoves her stuff on the passenger side of the car, walks to the driver's side of the car, and fishes out her keys from her purse. Cut to several minutes later, this woman's aunt, busy with her work on the computer, gets up and walks to the balcony because she realizes she's forgotten to dry some laundry. Briefly glances down from the second floor. She sees that the car hasn't moved an inch from the parking spot. Realizing this, she rushes down to check on her niece. She's really concerned that the niece might have fainted due to weakness from the extended 14-day fasting of Ramadan, which was on top of her already packed schedule. The niece is a successful 38-year-old businesswoman who runs an event management company from her office in the heart of industrial Bhopal. As the aunt rushes towards the car, she notices that her niece is slumped towards the passenger side. As she steps closer, she sees blood gushing out of her niece's trachea. Reflectively, a loud cry for help escapes her mouth and she catches the attention of her brother and the neighbors. The police are immediately summoned as the family can tell that she has already passed away. And the woman's father is heard repeatedly saying the same thing. Meri bachchi ko maar diya. They killed my little one. The constables arrive shortly and cordon off the area. As the onlookers and the media rush to catch a soundbite at the scene, the investigation begins. The people on the scene are interviewed and the police do their best to stop people from contaminating the crime scene. A few hours later, on the same day, an autopsy is performed around 2 p.m. by the famous coroner Dr. Barkul, the head of the medical legal department of Gandhi Medical College, Bhopal. By the evening of the same day, this woman's body was taken to the mosque for the last prayer. As she's laid to rest, chatter and rumors were already afoot, while her grief-stricken family was still trying to come to terms with what had happened. Several possibilities were already being discussed and circulated, one of which was that the woman had harmed herself, though no one could figure out why, or maybe someone was trying to cover up their misdeed by spreading these rumors. So who was this woman and why was she ambushed and killed? This woman was 38-year-old Sahala Masood, a business owner with an exhaustive list of accomplishments. She was an environmental activist, an anti-corruption campaigner, a right to information activist. She was well known around the community in Bhopal due to her social work, and she was often interviewed by journalists. She grew up in a loving middle-class family where her father, Masood Sultan, was the district librarian and she was lovingly called Shalu. Those who loved her describe her as a bold go-getter who had made it in a man's world with sheer grit and perseverance and become so much more than just a business owner. She had morphed herself into someone who was a voice for the voiceless, and this was not a shock to anyone who knew her or knew her family. In fact, her aunt Rabab Zaidi had taken the responsibility of her entire family, educated them, settled them, and worked in the education department while still remaining unmarried, a bold and unusual move for a woman in the 1960s. Her aunt was well known for riding her Vespa scooter around town. Sahala and her sister Aisha were cut from the same cloth. They attended the illustrious St. Joseph's Convent, and Sahala did her undergraduate work at Barkatullah University, where she attended the Bhopal School of Social Science. After her undergraduate degree, she decided to get a degree in journalism, which suited her bold personality. She was briefly married after that, and it's speculated that she was subjected to coercive control, due to which she moved back to Bhopal, where she initially became a newsreader for a local channel. Then she tried her hand at organizing fashion shows, and after dabbling in a few different things, she settled on event management business. She organized events around town for the rich and the powerful. Her work gave her the opportunity to rub shoulders with several political figures. One in particular was an elected member called Dhruv Narayan Singh. This man, the politician Dhruv Narayan Singh, he hailed from a politically powerful family and was the son of a former chief minister of Madhya Pradesh, who had also served as the governor of another state, a state called Bihar. Sahala was closely associated with Dhruv Narayan Singh, and their acquaintance is rumored to have turned romantic. After establishing herself as a successful business owner, she turned her attention towards community activism, filing several right to information requests against corrupt, high-up police officers and politicians to see where the funds paid by the Indian taxpayers were going. She took her work very seriously and wrote a blog called Let's Change the Rules, where she detailed her work as an activist. She took a lot of interest in saving tigers. When a particular tigress called Junjuru was killed by a drunk driver in Bandhavgarh National Forest by an elected minister's son, she held a press conference demanding accountability. She asked questions that all ordinary Indians had in mind. For example, why was the car allowed to enter the forest reserve? Why was the car allowed there at night? So naturally, one of the theories after her murder was that one of the higher-ups she had pissed off had come after her and killed her. Another theory was that she was garnering a lot of limelight owing to her work as a multi-case crusader, which pissed off many political minions and political leaders alike. Yet another theory was that the Diamond Mafia had silenced Sahala. Reportedly, Sahala had written letters to various ministers informing them about illegal mining of diamonds in the Chhatarpur area in Madhya Pradesh, which involved the Australian mining giant Rio Tinto. But the police ignored all these angles and settled on blaming Sahala's cousin Rahil. The police claimed that because he tried to help his sister by moving her body and tried to get her some medical assistance, this meant that he was trying to hide something or that he was jealous of her. Some gossip and rumors even speculated that the men in Sahala's family had killed her due to a misplaced sense of honor. When all this failed, the police simply declared that Sahala had killed herself. But the media was running more credible angles about her murder. A few days after her death, a 14-page letter was uncovered which detailed that Sahala had discovered about the misappropriation of funds. With all her activism coming to light, the Minister of Rural Development begged the Chief Minister of Madhya Pradesh to take the death of Sahala seriously and demanded that something be done to give her family justice. In fact, on August 18, 2011, her death was raised in the parliament of the country. Then, hours later, the Chief Minister of Madhya Pradesh, Shivraj Patil, declared that the matter would be handed over from the police to the CBI. Her death went viral and was discussed on British, American, even Australian television. Though the declaration was made on August 18 of 2011 that Sahala's case would be handed over to the CBI, it did not happen immediately. The case was in fact in limbo until September 5th of 2011. It was then formally handed over by the police to the CBI to senior officers by the name of Arun Bothra and Keshav Kumar. Both of these men had impeccable records. They were touted for their efficient and no nonsense approach. So 20 days later, around September 25th of 2016, these CBI officers began recreating the crime scene. On the day the CBI took over, the Outline magazine published Sahala's last interview, where she said, quote, "I fear for my life, but I will go on," unquote. A few days later, the CBI offered a reward of 5 lakh rupees, or the equivalent of $6,000, for information about this case. The exact time of death was narrowed to about 11:15, 11:20 am after many interviews with neighbors and family members. But although the crime had happened in broad daylight, apparently not a single person had seen the killing happen. So the CBI's only hope was anchored on a data dump from the nearby cell tower. There were almost 1 million cell phones that had connected to the cell tower on the day of the murder, August 16. And there was also the possibility that the killer was not even carrying cell phone on the morning of the murder. But despite all this, the CBI started to eliminate all suspects one by one, starting with the closest people in the family. Then they moved on to the 2 politicians Sahala was linked to. According to reports, Sahala had been seeing a politician by the name of D.N. Singh, and they frequently met and even traveled to Europe. There was also the speculation of some sort of communal tension, and that Sahala's murder might have been motivated by hurting religious sentiments, because the politician she was apparently dating was a prominent married Hindu man, while Sahala herself was a devout Muslim, which should be seen as a sign of progressive times, but it wasn't. There was also the speculation that maybe she was killed by a political rival, since she was aspiring to become a member of the legislature. But no matter what, almost all angles led to the ruling class of Madhya Pradesh. But there was no direct evidence. Around 7 months after her murder, on February 8th of 2012, suddenly news broke that the CBI had arrested 2 hired killers. One was a man called Shanu Olanka and another one called Saqib Ali, and his alias was Danger. 2 other men were also involved, but apparently the CBI had not apprehended them by February 28th of 2012. The interrogation of these accused was going on to ascertain who was the mastermind behind these contract killings. That's when a never heard before name, a name Zahida Pervez, suddenly emerged. She was apparently the one who had hired Saqib, and he in turn had hired 2 men and promised them 3 lakh rupees or $4,000. Minutes after the arrest, this became breaking news, and all news channels began circulating the theory that this might be a case of a love triangle, and that maybe Sahala was in love with Zahida's husband, a man called Asad Pervez. Later in the night of February 28th of 2012, the other accomplices were also captured, with the exception of a man called Shanu Olanka, who, turns out, had been gunned down a few weeks earlier when he had made an appearance in the court on an unrelated matter. But his accomplice Salim was taken into custody. On the next day, outside of the court, the police were taking Zahida for her court appearance. And she stopped and in fact spoke to the journalists who were clamoring to get a glimpse of her. After she had exited, a young woman somehow emerged in front of the waiting journalists. This young woman was later identified as Saba Faruqi. The woman was completely covered to hide her identity. She said, in front of the waiting cameras, quote, "Zahida has been framed. She had nothing to do with the murder," unquote. The next day, the Patrika newspaper quoted Zahida saying, "The CBI is trying to suggest that my husband, Asad Pervez, had an affair with Sahala. This is not correct. He did not have time for me. How can he have any time for relationship with her?" Unquote. Zahida, the woman charged with the murder, is a fascinating character. She was born into a middle class family in Madhya Pradesh on December 17th, 1975, and at the age of 3, she was adopted by her uncle and aunt since they didn't have any children. She grew up in a loving, comfortable family and attended the Christ Church Girls Senior Secondary School in Jabalpur. She was reportedly very bright, very focused, and quite conservative, but always treated everyone with respect. After studying in her home state of Madhya Pradesh, she moved to Mumbai to study architecture and interior design. While she was at university, her parents set up her matrimonial alliance with an eligible bachelor named Asad Parvez, who had studied in the US and returned to his hometown of Bhopal to manage his family businesses, which consisted of several petrol pumps, among other things. The family, in fact, lived in a historic house which Sir Syed, the founder of Aligarh Muslim University, had constructed. It's been reported that she never spoke to any of her neighbors after moving into her husband's home. It's also been said that she misbehaved with her husband, her mother-in-law, and her sister-in-law. People say that she would lose her temper very quickly and would break household items all the time. In fact, her mother-in-law had approached the police, and the police had suggested approaching the court to mitigate the situation. Zahida ran her own architectural firm called Era and worked for extended hours each day. Similar to her family, the consensus among Zahida's staff was that she was unreasonable, rude, and short-tempered. But how she's linked to the story begins with a sweep of Zahida's phone data, which revealed that she had used Sahala's assistant Irshad to spy on Sahala. In fact, seconds before Sahala's death, she had received a phone call from Irshad. This revelation really shocked everyone, especially Sahala's father, who had been supporting Irshad financially since Sahala's murder. Apparently, Irshad initially contacted Zahida because he was looking for a higher salary for working as an office boy running errands. Though he never joined Zahida's office and continued working for Sahala, he would regularly give Zahida information about Sahala's whereabouts. So the theory of Zahida needing to know Sahala's movement in connection to her suspicions about her husband's fidelity were bolstered in the eyes of the media. The CBI was looking for incriminating evidence other than just the cell phone link. They sealed Zahida's office and began searching it in the presence of Zahida's husband and a family friend called Sabah Faruqi. That's when the CBI found 17 newspaper cuttings about the minister Dhruv Narayan Singh, whom Sahala was rumored to be in a relationship with. While there, the police came across yet another file with 2 newspaper cuttings from the time when Sahala had been fasting to support Anna Hazare's India Against Corruption movement. The CBI also found several computer disks, pen drives, 10 SIM cards, memory cards, 2 digital video cassettes, and 40 CDs. They also found 4 diaries. One of the diaries was called Friends Forever, and there was another one called AK Electricals. It was in fact in this diary that they found an entry for August 16 of 2011, which was the day of Sahala's murder. And this entry gave them a blow-by-blow account of the day. In the entry, Zahida seems to be rejoicing Sahala's murder, and she memorialized the day like this, quote, "She is shot dead in front of her house. I was depressed since the early morning. All of a sudden, Ali called up around 11:15 a.m. and said, 'Mubarak ho sahib.' Now we did it in front of her house. I was in the office. Due to Ramzan, I came early. I sent Rohit to watch her car. He said the car is not parked there. Then I returned back to my home for saying some prayers. I became so relaxed. I went to the masjid. I did my prayers. So many calls were missed on my mobile regarding only the information of the incident. Around 12:30 p.m., Sanjay also called, but the call was missed. Then I called him back. He said, "This is too much, yaar." नफरत की इंतहा हो गई. A little later in the same diary entry she writes, सारे न्यूज़पेपर, सारे चैनल्स, सब उसके मर्डर की स्टोरी से भरे हुए थे. Unquote. It turns out that Zahida had a lot of emotional and logistical help from a woman called Sabah Faruqi, who was initially working as an accountant for Zahida's architectural firm, but later both became the best of friends. While still at Zahida's office, the CBI also found even more disturbing things. For example, they found a used condom which was packed inside an envelope and yet another envelope with the word D's hair written on top, and there was a lock of hair enclosed within that envelope. In addition, a fascinating letter addressed to the CBI was also found among her things. This letter was seemingly written by a man who made several unsavory accusations against the deceased Sahala Masood. A second letter was also uncovered from the office, which seemed to suggest that Sahala had been part of a fake or counter-currency racket. This search, which lasted non-stop for 13 hours, stopped somewhere around 4 a.m. After returning to the office, the CBI read through Zahida's diaries, and it was a treasure trove of information and motives. A gist of all her diaries from 2009 can be simplified like this. In the month of March, she writes that she met the minister, and despite breaking up with him several times, they continued talking. By July, she writes that they had consummated their relationship exactly on June 4. In the meantime, Zahida was apparently also seeing someone called Ajit. By July 27th of the same year, 2009, she texted the minister to ask him, "Do you love me?" to which he never responded. Over the course of 2009, 2010, 2011, and 2012, Zahida kept a detailed note of every single sexual encounter that she had with the minister. And she kept even more detailed notes on his other sexual partners. And despite knowing all the details and being married herself, she carried on this affair. She even admits to fake crying in front of the minister to garner sympathy. She admits to verbally abusing him, and he too used expletives when he addressed her. The entire time, she kept her relations with Ajit as well. Reading through her diary, it seems like Zahida knew very well that her relationship with the minister would only be sexual in nature, which was probably the case with his relationships with all women, since he was already married, and so was she, and they both had children with their spouses. And yet the way Zahida pines for him and curses him and loves him and then wishes harm upon him, it's a yo-yo of emotions which resembles someone who's very emotionally immature. She seems to have made a love story in her head which never actually existed. It can be easily deduced from her behavior that she perhaps has traits of borderline personality disorder, which is characterized by impulsivity, emotional instability, inappropriate, very intense anger, and people who have problems controlling their anger. She clearly exhibits both of these traits very prominently. If any thought is given to this woman's time management skills, the mind simply boggles. She was married. She had 2 other confirmed sexual partners other than her husband. She was making the lives of her mother-in-law and sister-in-law a living nightmare. She had filed cases against them. She was also spying on most of the sexual partners of her lover, the minister. She was also working as an architect and as an interior designer. All of this at the same time. She had even found some time to even sue a few more other people who were working as subcontractors with her. She can give productivity bros a run for their own money. After finding all this evidence, it suffices to say that the CBI had many things they wanted to confront Zahida about. In the meantime, a parallel interrogation of Zahida's confidant and her accessory, Sabah Faruqi, was going on February 29th of 2012. And that's where Sabah wrote in detail in her confession how Zahida had gotten Sahala murdered. She connected all the moving parts for the CBI officers, including the motorbike that the shooters had used as their getaway vehicle. Further parallel interrogations were conducted on March 3rd of 2012, where the CBI officers shared whatever Zahida was saying, whatever Sabah was saying, and whatever the minister was saying. The officers would then give each other information, and they were working as a well-oiled machine. All of this simultaneously. Sabah Faruqi had taken the CBI officers to Zahida's office one day earlier, and she had pointed out all the hidden cameras that Zahida had installed. The officers had seen all the recordings from all the CDs that they had recovered from Zahida's office. They confronted the minister with all those videos, and they made sure that he saw himself naked in action. There was about a 4-hour video on one CD where Zahida had filmed herself having intercourse with the minister. And the best part about all this interrogation was that the CBI officers would sit back and applaud the minister's performance on the sex CD, and they thoroughly embarrassed him. By doing so, they got more of his cooperation after that day. By the way, this minister was famous for casting aspersions upon others. He was famous for punching down at those who couldn't speak. And now, for a change, he was the one at the receiving end of a lot of embarrassment. When the minister was interrogated again, after he saw movies made of him by Zahida, he had a few choice words to say about her. And all this was recorded by the CBI. And then they later played those words in front of Zahida on March 4th of 2012, which was a Sunday. When Zahida heard the minister speak about her in dirty, derogatory language, she completely broke down. She said that the minister was the mastermind and he wanted Sahala Masood dead, and he had paid Zahida, and she in turn had paid her minions to get Sahala murdered. To bolster her argument, she pointed out that if the police look at the records, on August 16th, which was the day of Sahala's murder, the minister's wife had in fact called Sahala's residence, and there was yet another call by a different minister on Sahala's phone. On March 14th, the 4 people who were physically involved in the killing were questioned by the CBI simultaneously. These 4 people were Irfan, Saqib, Zahida, and Sabah. After interrogation, it was proven that Irfan had in fact lied to the police and had informed them that there was a petty criminal called Shanno Olanka who was long dead, and Irfan claimed that he was in fact the shooter. It turns out that was not true at all. In fact, the 3 people who were physically involved in the murder was a man called Irfan, another one called Tabish, and the third one called Saqib. It was also uncovered that these men had tried to kill Sahala several times and had finally succeeded to carry out their hit on August 16th. It was also confirmed finally that Zahida was the one who had Sahala murdered. In fact, after Sahala's murder, she even tried to get Saqib killed as well. The CBI couldn't find out any evidence that would back up the claim made by Zahida that in fact it was the minister who was involved in killing Sahala Masood. Still, there was widespread uproar from the people of the opposing party and from Minister Singh's own political party. They were pressuring the CBI to charge him for his involvement in the crime. But the CBI couldn't find any conclusive evidence to link him. All this had happened because of a woman's insatiable ego. She wanted to be the only sexual partner of an aging but powerful politician, despite the fact that they were both married and they both had children. Zahida was also hoping to get recognition with her picture besides the ministers on a hoarding all across Bhopal. When Zahida realized that he didn't make the time to meet her on his birthday, while he met all the other sycophants, and also took the time to go meet Sahala the day after his own birthday, She apparently lost whatever little restraint and then she ordered Sahala's killing. On January 28th of 2017, 5 years, 5 months, and 11 days after Sahala Masood was killed, Zahida Pervez, the mastermind, was finally convicted of murder under Section 302 and sentenced to jail. She was accompanied by her BFF and partner in crime, Sabah Faruqi, along with Irfan, Saqib, and Tabish. And that concludes the sad story of Sahala Masood, a life cut short too early.
Right, Didi. So let's start by psychoanalyzing or psychologically analyzing our murderer Zahida Parvez. Didi, could you explain what are the things that you think are important when we look at this woman, our murderer?
Okay, before we dive deep into it, tell me, why do people feel jealous?
Okay, jealousy is a normal human emotion. So I would say, let's take an example. Suppose you and I both want a particular thing, you end up getting it, and I don't. Probably the emotion that I will feel would be jealousy.
Absolutely. So, in psychological terms, it is evolutionary psychology and attachment theory. So, which explains that people are jealous and they're very obsessive in love. So, our murderer, Zahida Pervez, when we look at her, this theory helps us explain why a murderer like her may feel an extreme emotional reaction to the relationship
of Sahala Masood with the politician.
Politician.
Okay, I understand. Okay. So, Didi, so from an evolutionary perspective, you're saying that just as human beings, or whether it be a man or a woman, all of us want to guard our mate. I know that's a funny word, but you want to guard your mate.
Yes, so maid guarding and jealousy. So humans, as you rightly said, both men and women, they have developed, strange strategies to basically maintain access to their valuable partners.
Yeah, I mean, and by the way, the funny thing is that the valuable person here was Dhruv Narayan Singh, a man who was already married, but because he's a politician, of course, I get why some people would find that appealing. Um, okay, so you're saying that Zahida Pervez is not alone. All humans, some and for all humans of all kinds, may engage in rival directed aggression, and her aggression was just taken to an extreme. That's why she ended up killing Sahala Masood. Is that what you're saying?
Absolutely. She wanted to eliminate her competition. And when she felt her mate is being taken away, her aggression came out in this way and she turns herself into a murderer. So, this particular female may have perceived that Sahala Masood was a threat to her status, the resources that she could get out of Dhruv, and control over him. And this triggered an emotion of extreme jealousy.
Right. Okay, so but what really interested me is both of these women were completely sort of. Zahida Pervez was a very well-known interior designer. She had a business of her own. She also, there's a comment that I make in the video and in the audio as well, which is I was actually quite stunned that this woman found the time to do anything else in life because she was actually had so many projects of her own. So both the women were so accomplished in their own way, educated. Both were independent women and independent business women. That's the one thing I would want you to sort of talk about.
Okay, let us look at attachment theory perspective. Now, attachment theory suggests that early childhood relationships shape how we respond to our romantic situations. So, as a child, she was brought up by her uncle's family and she was never raised with her biological parents. So, she wanted more, everything more, love from not only her uncle's family, so everyone around her, she thought she's entitled to more love.
Right. So that's because she had an anxious, disorganized attachment style, which can lead to more obsession. She wanted more control, and she possibly thought not only of this common lover, Dhruv Narayan Singh, she probably saw him as quote unquote like a piece of property, right?
Yeah, so she was extremely possessive about him. He belonged to her, so that belongingness and aggressive reactions to the perceived betrayal.
Right. So she was perceiving this betrayal from Dhruv Narayan Singh. She thought that if she will eliminate her competition, which was Sahala Masood, everything would be okay. Which I really find strange, because Dhruv Narayan Singh was a married man with a family of his own. Even Zahida Parvez was a married woman with a family of her own. So anyway, Didi, so let's psychologically look into one more thing. Off the mic, you were explaining something to me once. I remember you mentioned something about the dark triad personality traits. Do you think we can diagnose Zahida Parvez with any of that? I know you're always reluctant because you don't know this woman personally, but let's speculate together.
Okay, thank you for clarifying that. Yes, but yes, we can speculate. So Zahida here seems to have dark triad personality traits, that is, three personality traits: narcissism, Machiavellianism, and psychopathy.
Okay, so a Machiavellian human being, basically, if I remember from Niccolo Machiavelli, 14th century philosopher, right? So he was basically the Chanakya of Italy, the Kautilya of Italy, right? So he basically explained to us through his political philosophy how a king should be manipulative, calculating, emotionally detached. And you're saying that Zahida Parvez actually has the same traits.
Yes, the dark triad consists of three overlapping personality traits, and this contributes to their criminal behavior. So, narcissism, we've discussed this in the past also. It is inflated self-importance, need for constant admiration and entitlement.
Yeah, of course. I mean, she felt she was more entitled to sleeping with this man than Sahala would be. Okay, could you tell me a little bit about her psychopathy?
Yeah, she lacked empathy.
Yeah.
You've explained this over and over. She was impulsive.
Although, Didi, I think I would push back on that because I don't think she was impulsive. Here, I would say because it was a long drawn plan with which she killed her competitor Sahala Masood. She hired killers. She staked out the area where this woman would be killed. There was an entire recce of how they would kill this woman. So I would push back on that one part about impulsivity, but I would agree with
Aggression. Then she was aggressive. So you
Yeah.
agree with aggression, as we were discussing previously.
right. Because not everybody would hit all the holy trifectas. Some things are missing in some people, and some things are more prominent in others.
Definitely, definitely.
Right. So, Didi, you've explained this really well. Now, what we'll do is, I think, because the video has gotten so long already, we would just encourage people to actually not just hear this as a podcast episode. For a change, this one is also a YouTube episode that was uploaded on 1st of January 2024. So that was more than a year ago. We would encourage you to watch our YouTube channel, which is also Collectively Vigilant.